The dust under the hotel bed was tickling my nose, and I had to press my hand hard over my mouth to keep from sneezing. I was lying face down, my ridiculously expensive white wedding dress crushed against the hardwood floor, the delicate lace catching on the rough carpet fibers. It was absurd, I know. A 30-year-old woman hiding under a bed on her wedding night, like a kid playing hide and seek. But I wanted to see the look on Garrett's face. He'd walk into our honeymoon suite at the Langham in Boston, loosen his tie, maybe call my name in that soft, confused voice I loved so much. Claire. And then, surprise, I'd roll out, probably a mess of tulle and silk, and we'd collapse onto the mattress laughing. It was supposed to be the beginning of our happily ever after. The heavy mahogany door creaked open. I bit my lip, stifling a giggle. My muscles tensed, ready to spring. But the footsteps were wrong. They weren't Garrett's confident, heavy strides. They were sharp, staccato clicks, expensive high heels. I froze. Through the tiny gap between the comforter and the floor, I saw a pair of designer silver stilettos stop right in the middle of the room. I recognized those shoes immediately. They belonged to Diane, my brand new mother-in-law. "Yeah, Mom, I'm already in the suite." Diane's voice rang out, sharp and imperious. She put her phone on speaker and tossed it onto the bed. The mattress springs groaned above my head. "Are they gone?" asked a breathy female voice from the phone. "Garrett's downstairs settling the final bill with the caterer. And the girl, well, who knows where she is? Probably in the bathroom fixing her drugstore makeup." Diane sneered. She started pacing. Click, click, click. My heart hammered against my ribs. The girl. Drugstore makeup. Just hours ago, this woman had hugged me with tears in her eyes, calling me a blessing. "So it's done?" asked the voice. "It's done," said Diane. A lighter flicked. Smoke drifted to the floor. "Rings on the finger. Certificate is signed. We've got her locked in, and she has absolutely no idea. Claire is a pushover. A small-town nobody from nowhere, Ohio. She thinks she hit the jackpot landing my son. She has no clue. She's just a glorified front." My hands went ice cold. But Diane kept going. "Are you sure about the brownstone?" the voice asked. "If they divorce, won't you get half?" "We've got it all figured out," Diane replied. "They'll live together a year, maybe 18 months, just enough to make it look real. Then Garrett starts complaining. We make her look unstable, or better yet, make her life so miserable she leaves on her own. We have the receipts showing Garrett paid the down payment. We'll claim the brownstone in court. She won't have money for a decent lawyer." I covered my mouth with both hands, tears stinging my eyes. The brownstone. Our beautiful brownstone on Marlborough Street in Back Bay. "She's practically an orphan," Diane continued, kicking off a shoe that landed inches from my nose. "Her father is some retired nobody living off Social Security in Sarasota. No safety net. Once we strip the assets, she'll crawl back to the trailer park mentality she came from. And Garrett will finally be free to marry someone with real class. Someone like Brooke." Brooke. The name hit me like a physical blow. Garrett's childhood friend. The woman at the wedding today in that too-tight red dress, smiling too wide. "We'll sell the brownstone, invest in the firm, and he'll be set for life." This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a heist. My marriage was a con to steal real estate. Suddenly, Diane crouched near the bed. My heart stopped. Her manicured nails scraped the hardwood inches from my face. She picked up my pearl earring that must have fallen off. "Cheap thing," she muttered, tossing it on the nightstand. She stood back up, and I nearly passed out from relief. The doorknob turned. "Mom?" Garrett's voice. My husband entered. I waited, praying he'd defend me. Instead, he sighed and flopped onto the bed, right on top of me. "Is she here?" "No, probably lost in the hallway. Listen, we need to talk about the wire transfer before she gets back." "I know, Mom, but can we do this tomorrow? I've got to pretend I'm excited about consummating this marriage tonight, and it's going to take a lot of energy." Something inside me fractured. The naive, happy Claire died in that dusty darkness, and something else began to wake up. I reached into my bodice and pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder. The red line started moving. "Talk," I thought. "Keep talking, you monsters. Give me everything." To understand why a woman with an MBA from Wharton and a trust fund that could buy this entire hotel was hiding under a bed, you have to understand my mother. Catherine was the kindest soul you could meet, also incredibly wealthy, an heiress to a shipping fortune. When she passed 10 years ago, it wasn't cancer that killed her. It was heartbreak. Her own sister and best friend had been siphoning money from her charities for years. On her deathbed, she made me promise. Find someone who loves you for you. Not the last name, not the accounts. Money is a magnifying glass. It shows you who people are, but sometimes it burns you first. My father, Richard, CEO of Titan Construction Group, taught me to read contracts before fairy tales. So I created a test. I moved out of our estate in Greenwich, rented a shabby apartment in Somerville, drove a 5-year-old Honda Civic, and worked as an administrative assistant. I secretly managed my own investment portfolio at night. To the world, I was Claire, the nice girl with student loans and a grocery budget. Garrett appeared on a rainy Tuesday. I was rushing into a coffee shop and dropped my wallet into a puddle. Mud splashed everywhere. I was about to cry. It had been a terrible week, when a handsome man in a slightly worn jacket picked it up and wiped the mud off with his own sleeve. "I think this is yours," he said, smiling. His eyes were warm, hazel with green flecks. I checked the wallet. Nothing was missing. I offered to buy him a coffee. "I'd love that," he said. "I've got about 20 minutes before I have to get back to the grind." We talked for 2 hours. He told me he was a sales rep struggling to hit his quotas, that he drove an old car that broke down every other week. He talked about his dreams of traveling, seeing art in Italy, but that he could never afford it. "I don't care about being rich," he told me, looking deep into my eyes. "I just want a life that feels real. You know, Sunday barbecues, a dog, someone to share the quiet with." It was exactly what I wanted to hear. For the next 2 years, Garrett passed every test. He never borrowed money. He brought me wildflowers from the roadside because he couldn't afford fancy roses, but thought these were prettier. He clipped coupons with me. When my car broke down, a staged event, he drove 40 minutes out of his way to pick me up every morning for a week. I fell deeply, madly, stupidly in love. I introduced him to my father, but kept the lie going. I told Garrett my dad was a retired foreman living on a pension in Florida. Dad played along, though he grumbled about it. He flew up wearing flannel shirts and complaining about gas prices, hiding his Rolex in his pocket. "He seems nice enough," Dad admitted later. "But he's soft, Claire. Listens too much to his mother." "He respects his mother, Dad. That's a good trait." Oh, how wrong I was. Diane. The first time I met her, she looked me up and down like I was a stain on her carpet. She lived in a small, cluttered house in Revere, but acted like exiled royalty. She constantly talked about how Garrett deserved better. "Claire, dear, do you really think you can support a family on an assistant's salary?" Garrett needs a partner who can elevate him. I just smiled and swallowed the insults, thinking, if only you knew. I planned to tell Garrett everything on our honeymoon. I wanted to see his face light up when I told him he'd never have to worry about a quota again. I was so excited to give him the world. I didn't realize he was already planning to steal the small piece of it I'd shown him. The brownstone was the trap. I found a stunning foreclosure on Marlborough Street for $1.2 million. I told Garrett I had a small inheritance from my grandmother. His eyes nearly popped. Diane swooped in, convincing me to let Garrett handle the transaction. A wife shouldn't emasculate her husband before the marriage even starts. So the money passed through his account, but I had my attorney Jessica draft the deed 100% in my name. Garrett didn't read the fine print. He thought because he signed the check, he owned the house. He thought he'd played me. Now, under the bed, I heard Diane ask about Brooke's lease. Her lease is up in 6 months, Garrett said. That's why we need to speed this up, Mom. Besides, the baby needs a room. The baby. I clamped my hand over my mouth so hard I tasted blood. Brooke was pregnant. Don't worry about the baby, said Diane. We'll set up the nursery once Claire's gone. I feel bad, Mom, Garrett said. Claire's sweet. She cooks for me, looks at me like I'm a hero. Oh, spare me. She's a nobody. You want to be married to a coupon clipper? Or be with Brooke, who actually knows how to shine? Brooke's fire, Garrett agreed, his voice turning lustful. Claire is bland as plain yogurt. Bland as plain yogurt. I had dimmed my entire light for this man, hidden my designer wardrobe, my connections with politicians and CEOs, all so he'd feel comfortable. I became yogurt because I thought he wanted simple love. Diane laid out the financial plan. Drained the joint account slowly. Claimed the brownstone using wire transfer receipts. They were so stupidly confident. They had no idea my retired pensioner father had a legal team that ate sharks for breakfast. They left the room. I waited 10 minutes, then slid out. My dress was gray with dust. My makeup was smeared. But my eyes were clear. A cold, mechanical calm took over. I peeled off the wedding dress, pulled on jeans and a sweatshirt, and drove my beat-up Civic, which had a Porsche engine under the hood, straight to Greenwich. Dad, I said on the Bluetooth, you were right about everything. Wake up, Jessica. We're going to war. My father waited on the porch in his silk robe. Jessica, the fiercest corporate attorney in New England, had a laptop open on the patio table. I played the recording. When it ended, Dad snapped his unlit cigar in half. I'll destroy him. No, I said. Too fast, too easy. I want them to think they've won, then pull the rug so hard they never get back up. Jessica drafted a postnuptial agreement disguised as an insurance requirement. Garrett would waive all marital interest in the brownstone in exchange for $800 a month in lower premiums. He'd sign without reading. I drove back to the hotel before sunrise, climbed into bed next to Garrett, and smiled. Couldn't sleep. I was so excited about our future, babe. Sleep well, Garrett. It's the last peaceful rest you'll ever have. Over the next 2 weeks, I was a tornado of strategic incompetence. Salt instead of sugar in his coffee, shrunk his cashmere sweaters, forgot the internet bill. The more annoyed he got, the more he ran to Brooke. My father's PI tracked every visit via GPS. I ruined Diane's prized vintage coat in the washing machine. When she screamed, Garrett had to swallow his fury to keep me happy. That night, I slid the disguised postnuptial across the table. The insurance company says if you sign this waiver, the premium drops $800 a month. He saw the words waiver of liability, skipped the paragraph about renouncing all marital property rights, and signed. Click. The trap closed. I planned the dinner party, invited everyone, Diane, her gossipy nieces, and Brooke. Jessica and I installed tiny cameras in the living room. I cooked the worst meal imaginable with the cheapest ingredients: greasy ground beef, wilted vegetables, boxed wine that cost less than $3. I also slipped into the bathroom while Garrett showered and rifled through his gym bag, the one he took to work but actually carried to Brooke's apartment. Inside, tucked in a side pocket, was a pharmacy receipt. Prenatal vitamins. Dated yesterday. Got you. I pocketed the receipt. The guests arrived at 6. Diane entered first, wearing a new dress I suspected she'd bought with the wedding reimbursement money. She sniffed around the brownstone like a landlord.
Well, she huffed. At least you swept the floor this time. Then Brooke arrived, holding Garrett's arm too tightly, wearing a loose-fitting dress to hide her small bump. I saw the way she unconsciously rested her hand on her belly. "Hi, Claire," she said, dripping fake sweetness. "The house looks cozy." "Hi, Brooke. You're glowing," I said, looking directly at her abdomen. She flinched. During dinner, I tripped with a pitcher of red wine. It splashed across Brooke's lap, the liquid clinging to her stomach, revealing the unmistakable curve of a pregnant belly. "Are you okay?" Garrett yelled, rushing to her. "Is the baby okay?" Silence. Absolute silence. He realized what he'd said. Diane tried to cover. "Clumsy, useless Claire. You're worthless." Instead of cowering, I picked up my napkin and calmly wiped a drop of wine from my hand. "Sit down, Diane," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was absolute zero. I walked around the table like a shark circling a sinking ship. I slapped the pharmacy receipt down. "Prenatal vitamins, purchased by Garrett Whitfield." Then I pulled out the postnuptial agreement. "Remember this, Garrett? You signed away all claims to this property. You signed away your golden ticket for $800 a month." Diane screamed it wouldn't hold up. "Oh, it will," I said. "Jessica made it bulletproof." "And Garrett, tell them where the money really came from. You created 3 fake vendor accounts under DW Consulting, Diane Whitfield Consulting. You approved phantom invoices at Titan Construction. You stole $87,000 in 6 months." Their faces went white. "You really didn't do your background check, did you? My last name isn't just Marshall. It's Marshall Harrington. My father is Richard Harrington, CEO and sole owner of Titan Construction Group." The front door swung open. Blue lights flashed. Jessica entered in a charcoal power suit. Behind her, 2 uniformed officers and Detective Morales from the Financial Crimes Unit. "Garrett Whitfield, you are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and larceny." Diane was handcuffed for conspiracy to launder money. I turned to Brooke, trembling in her wine-stained dress. "You have 5 minutes to leave. Grab your purse, grab your lies." "But he promised me," she whispered. "He promised me too," I said. "He's a liar, Brooke. You're just the next victim. Run while you can." Garrett got 5 years. Diane got probation after testifying against her own son. The divorce was swift. I got everything because there was nothing left to fight over. I sold the brownstone. It was contaminated. I became CEO of Titan Construction when my father retired. No longer hiding, no longer pretending. They called me the Ice Queen. Efficient, brilliant, untouchable. I dated no one. Every smile from a man made me wonder what he wanted. Then, at a charity gala for the symphony,
a tall architect with messy dark hair and amber eyes named Elliot, told me I looked like I'd rather have a root canal. Actually, I said coldly, I'd prefer an audit. Root canals take too long. He laughed. Not a polite society laugh, a deep, genuine sound that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He didn't know who my father was for 3 months. When he found out, he groaned and put his head on the table. Great. Now people will think I'm a gold digger. Do you have any idea how hard it is to buy a birthday present for a woman who can buy a country? You don't have to buy me anything, I said, watching him carefully. You're getting a hand-carved birdhouse, he grumbled, because it's the only thing I can make that you can't buy. And he did. It was crooked and the paint was uneven, but I put it on my mantelpiece next to my Ming vases. It was the most valuable thing in the room. It took Elliot 6 months to get me to dinner. 6 months of proving he wasn't interested in my status. When my father had a heart attack, Elliot sat in the hospital holding my hand for 12 hours straight. Didn't check his phone, didn't complain. When Dad woke up, Elliot cracked a joke. Mr. Harrington, you really went to extremes to dodge our golf game. Later, I broke down. Why are you so good to me? I'm difficult, I'm distrustful, I'm damaged goods. You're not damaged goods, Claire. You're a survivor. I love the woman who hides under beds to prank her husband because she has a playful heart. I just love you. He proposed on a Tuesday while we were doing laundry. Marry me. I already signed a prenup. Jessica has it. I leave with what I came with, my tools and my good looks. I just want you. I searched for the lie. There was nothing. Yes, I said. But you keep the birdhouse. Years later, Diane appeared outside Titan's headquarters on a rainy afternoon. I almost didn't recognize her. She was gaunt, gray-haired, wearing a thin coat and clutching a cleaning bucket. She was arguing with security. I just need to talk to her, she was shouting, her voice hoarse and stripped of its old imperious snap. Brooke had abandoned her son, Leo, Garrett's boy, a 5-year-old with leukemia. Nadea had met a truck driver 2 years prior and left the child behind like luggage. Diane was cleaning houses to survive, but it wasn't enough for the medical bills. She fell to her knees on the wet pavement when I agreed to help. I won't give you money, I said coldly. I don't trust you not to spend it on something else. But tell me the hospital name. I'll cover his treatment anonymously through Titan's charity fund. She clutched the hem of my slacks. Thank you. You're an angel. I'm not an angel, I told her, stepping back. I'm just a mother. And don't tell Garrett. I don't want him to know. I felt no triumph watching her on her knees. Only pity. The woman who had mocked my father's pension was now living the exact reality she had tried to create for me. Months later, Garrett requested a prison visit. His note said, about Leo, and about why you never got pregnant. You need to know. During our marriage, we hadn't used protection. I'd wanted a baby desperately. I'd cried every month when the test was negative. Garrett had always consoled me, saying, it'll happen when it's meant to happen. I drove to the state prison. The walls were gray. The air smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. I sat behind the plexiglass. They brought Garrett in. He looked 20 years older. Thin hair, pale skin, a permanent hunch of defeat. He picked up the phone. Claire, you look incredible. I'm happy, Garrett. Something you never wanted me to be. I deserve that. Listen, I don't have much time. I need to tell you something. Remember how you wanted a baby? How you worried you were infertile? My grip on the receiver tightened. You weren't infertile, Claire. Mom made me do it. She crushed emergency contraceptive pills, the morning after pill, and put them in the smoothies she made you every Sunday at her house. She swapped your daily vitamins for placebos. She said if you got pregnant, the divorce would be too complicated. A child ties you for 18 years. She wanted a clean break once we had the brownstone. She said she couldn't risk having a child with your genes mixed with ours. She wanted Brooke to have the heir. The room spun. They had poisoned me. Violated my body to make sure I wouldn't conceive. All while I sobbed on Garrett's shoulder about not being able to have children. Monsters. It's a blessing, though, right? He said, actually trying to smile. Imagine if we'd had a kid. You'd be tied to me forever. You're right, I said, my voice trembling. It is a blessing. Because my children will never have a single drop of your poisonous blood in their veins. I hung up the phone and walked out into the sunlight. I collapsed on a bench and sobbed. I cried for the baby I thought I couldn't have. I cried for the violation. But mostly, I cried from relief. Elliot found me later, held me while I shook. They can't hurt you anymore, he promised. And he was right. The poison had been purged. I was finally, truly clean. Today I'm sitting on the terrace of our beach house on Cape Cod. The sky is painted with strokes of violent orange and soft purple. Below on the sand, Elliot is teaching our son Max to fly a kite. Our daughter Lily sits on a towel reading a book, looking like a younger version of me, but with a stronger spine. I think about that night almost 20 years ago. The dust under the bed, the smell of hardwood, the crushing weight of betrayal. I remember the split second when I thought, maybe if I love him enough, he'll choose me. Thank God I didn't listen to that voice. Thank God I chose the war. People ask me how I trust again. The answer is simple. The darkness taught me to recognize the light. Garrett taught me what love is not. Love is not transactional. Love is not a secret scheme. Love is not turning someone into plain yogurt so they won't outshine you. Love is Elliot carving a crooked birdhouse. Love is my father standing in a courtroom defending my honor. Love is paying for a sick child's treatment, even though his father broke my heart. Love is action. I set down my glass and walked to the railing. Elliot looks up from the beach and waves. Claire, look, it's flying. The kite soars high on the wind, climbing until it catches the current and steadies, dancing against the clouds. I see it, I shout. It's beautiful. I am Claire Marshall Harrington. I am a mother. I am a CEO. I am a wife. And I am the woman who didn't let the joke be on her. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, no matter how dark it gets down there, there's always a way out. You just have to be brave enough to open the door. Goodbye. And take care of yourselves. You deserve the best.